Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here on this Tuesday night, the first evening, in fact, of September at 9:57. You are listening to the William Haynes Show live on WHBC Stream. Of course, we are live as always from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Plenty to discuss, more than I was anticipating to discuss prior to the bottom of that ninth inning. Obviously, we'll have to lead with kind of the beanball from the New York Yankees. It looks like there's going to be a lot coming out of the post-game interviews with Kevin Cash and all that. There's already some tweets from Mark Tompkin, who was covering the game for the Tampa Bay Times in Yankee Stadium tonight. He's already got a quote, Kevin Cash, quote, "It was absolutely ridiculous," quote, "poor judgment," and quote, "poor coaching by the Yankees." If you're not familiar, and I'd be quite surprised if you weren't, the game led off, I believe the third batter of the game, it was Joey Wendell getting hit by a pitch, and then he was smiling. It seemed like kind of the inside baseball, the Rays knew that the Yankees, for whatever reason, were throwing at him. It was obvious by Tanaka. He got him right in the belt, which is what they say is kind of textbook throwing at a hitter. And then, of course, with the ninth inning, Chapman getting the save, 1-2-3, but all three batters he faced, he threw a pitch right at, including, and we're going to actually go to the phones right now because I know it's a hot kind of topic. We'll go right now. All right, we have Seth calling from Los Angeles. Seth, how are you doing, man? Likewise, you're not the only one. I mean, absolutely crazy what the Yankees did tonight.
From Major League Baseball for this, then they have lost all credibility. Disappointing player.
Absolutely. I think it's pretty clear that there are going to be some suspensions handed down. I just got this from Mark Tompkin on Twitter. A quote from Cash. He warned the Yankees he, quote, has a whole stable of guys who throw 98. So I think we're going to see some retaliation right out of the bat. I wouldn't be surprised maybe Morton hits someone right out of the gate and there's a brawl in the first inning. I mean, the Rays, I know they're not the kind of team that does that kind of old-fashioned baseball, but the Yankees have left them no choice at this point. The Rays do have to respond in some kind of way, and I think, unfortunately...
You know what?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You continue. It's my apologies.
No, I was just saying it's unfortunate the Yankees have forced the Rays to stoop to the Yankees low. The Rays usually don't kind of do this stuff, but they've been left no choice is all.
I'm going to be honest, though. I actually disagree with that. I think that we need to take the high road here. I quite frankly think that the Rays need to not hit anyone. They need to show that the Yankees that revenge is best served cold, and that the revenge is best when it is success. You know, I really think that they should not throw at anyone here. I think Cash was making some posturing statements, but I would hope that he has the brains to realize that, first of all, suspensions on this are probably going to come down before the game tomorrow. So, if MLB is going to do the same thing they did with Joe Kelly, which I'm a Dodger fan, and I personally do not believe that the throw at Correa was intentional, but honestly, a precedent has now been set. So the MLB needs to hand down the same suspensions. There better be suspensions for this, and if they're smart, the suspensions will come down before the game tomorrow, and there will be no retaliation. And because I don't want any of us getting suspended. That's my critical thing, and I think Cash is smart enough to know this. You cannot throw at guys in a pennant race. You just can't. It's not worth it, especially Morton. Morton cannot throw at anyone because we can't have him getting suspended for multiple games. That's the same as an injury. It's exactly the same. We are too injured right now to lose pitchers doing this. The only person that I would say would be acceptable to throw at anyone right now, put in Garcia. Put in Garcia as an opener and let him plunk somebody. If we're really going to do that, if that's really going to be the way we got to play it, I really can't endorse having Morton throw at anyone. I certainly can't endorse Cash ordering that from any of our good relievers or pitchers or starting pitchers. We just can't do that because that's essentially the same as an injury. MLB has set a precedent now. They've set a precedent that if you throw at somebody, you get 8 games reduced to 5. And if you hit somebody, it's going to be more. So that's the same as putting a guy in the 10-day IL, and we already have 13 of those. So let's not do that. That's my take, personally.
Yeah, you know, your thoughts are heard, and I think you do have a good point there. One thing I would say, as far as maybe the suspension goes with Joe Kelly, I think the precedent with that was a little different because the MLB had come out and said that under no circumstance are we going to tolerate the throwing towards the Astros specifically. So I'm not sure if it would be 8 games. And I think this is a little different as well because that Joe Kelly thing seemed like, I know the manager got suspended for a game, but it looked like that was kind of a Joe Kelly-led operation. In this situation, I mean, who is it that you're suspending? Aaron Boone, the third base coach Phil Nevin, who's been an instigator, or Aroldis Chapman? You could even suspend potentially Tanaka for throwing at Wendell at the beginning of the game. There's a lot more pieces to this particular situation. So, I mean, Major League Baseball, they've got a mess on their hands tonight to figure out.
Well, the ball's in their court. I mean, in all honesty, the ball is in their court. They have to do something here, or there will be retaliation. That is quite frankly the point here. That is the facts. Joe Torre, Manfred, you guys need to get together and you need to realize something quick. We have a stall full of 98 throwers. We do. We got a bunch of guys that can throw 98, 100. There will be people getting hit. There will be people getting hit in the head if there's going to be no punishment for this. If there's going to be no ejections, nothing. Then there's going to be people getting seriously injured because, I mean, if you throw at somebody 98, that could ride up on you and hit him in the face by accident. You know, there could be some people getting seriously hurt if there are no retaliations here because you're right. The pitchers will probably take it up to themselves. It will be a Joe Kelly type operation. However, I will say I don't know if your info on that is 100% correct because as I recall, MLB released a blanket statement that said any throwing at any player is going to have higher punishment this year because of the Astros and also because of COVID. That's what I read. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But that's what I recall reading. So I recall that. So I would think if MLB is going to follow that precedent, I believe that the Kelly thing and also the Ramon Laureano thing, even though they were both involved with the Astros, I think that some of that was COVID protocol. Some of that is this new COVID rule stuff. So I think there's going to be heads going to roll here before the game. I honestly, if they're smart, if they don't want players getting hurt, then there are going to be heads rolling before the game. There's going to be people getting suspended. I would wager, I mean, if they're not stupid, they would suspend Tanaka and Chapman for 5 games apiece, and Boone and the third base coach for a game apiece. And if they want to look unbiased, maybe throw a suspension in for Cash too for John at the umpires. Okay, give him a 1-game suspension. He'll appeal it, whatever. But I mean, they should definitely, if they're smart, all 4 of those guys are getting suspensions if they're smart. Because otherwise there's going to be retaliation, and I really don't want that to happen. And I would think Kevin Cash is smart enough to sit here and say, no, let's not do that, because then we're putting guys on the IL for no reason, essentially. Like, we're going to be, it's like putting somebody on the IL, even if it's not multi-game, even if it's only like 4 games or something, it's still like putting a dude on the IL. You don't have that reliever, you don't have that pitcher. So I would think Cash is going to be smart enough to sit here and think to himself, let's put the ball in the Yankees' court. If suspensions come down, we don't do anything. If no suspensions come down, then maybe we see what happens. But then if no suspensions come down, I'm thinking the players are going to take it onto themselves, and that's really bad. You never want that to happen, because that's probably what happened with Joe Kelly. You're probably right. And you don't want that to happen, because if the players take it upon themselves to start doling out justice, then that's going to be, you're going to have people getting seriously hurt. It's not going to be a game anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as poorly as the umpires tonight did such a poor job of handling the situation, I think certainly, I mean, Major League Baseball has no choice but to, when the league office opens tomorrow, announce the suspensions, if not sooner. I was disappointed with the way the umps handled it tonight because, I mean, whether it was warnings, I think, honestly, let's be honest, Chapman should have been out of that game. He threw 101 miles an hour at Brasso's head. I mean, that could be potentially fatal if that goes sideways. I think, I don't...
Absolutely.
If I don't even know if warnings were issued to the Yankees. The whole thing was absurd. The Yankees always get away with
warnings
this kind of stuff.
Issued, yes. Yeah, well, warnings were issued to the Yankees and the Rays, which is kind of the other stupid thing. I hate it when umpires do that. I hate it when umpires just go, ooh, ooh, and just gesture to both teams. Like, that's like, I mean, you can't see me do it. I don't know why I gestured to myself just now. But you know what I mean? Like, I hate it when they go out there and gesture to both teams. You're both warned. I'm sorry, but, like, did the Rays do anything? Was there any retaliation for Tanaka? No. Was there any retaliation for the number of times the Yankees have thrown up and ended us already? No. So, I mean, this is patently ridiculous to warn the Rays. And, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Aroldis Chapman should have been ejected from this game. And, quite frankly, if I was running the MLB, there would have been a suspension for him immediately after. I would have had the statement done. I would have been like, you know what? Secretary guy or gal, write up the statement. We're getting this guy out. Like, he's suspended for 5 games. Like this is. I would have had that done right away. If I was Manfred, but of course I'm not, because if I was, then the Astros would have been banned from participating in the season.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
If I was in charge, then there would be no Astro participation here. And quite frankly, I probably would have banned the Marlins and Cardinals after the whole COVID incident. I would have told them, you're out. Like, you better just pack your bags. You're going home.
Oh yeah, when that was at its height, yeah, I figured, yeah, for sure the Marlins would have been done, but of course they came back and they may be able to make a run at things. Yeah. I guess kind of the bottom line comment of this, it is really sad the direction the Yankees have decided to take in this kind of new rivalry that has formed over the last couple of years. Of course, we think back to 2018, and who knows, maybe if there was events that predated that, but that late September game with Kittredge and Sabathia, and Sabathia has always been a big instigator in this thing, but this was completely... The Rays have been completely owning the Yankees this year, and instead of the Yankees and Aaron Boone just wanting to beat the Rays on the field, they have to stoop to, right out of the gate, first inning, Tanaka's hitting Wendell in the belt, and, purposely bringing in Chapman, who throws triple digits, to throw at guys' heads. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, that's a totally classless decision by that entire organization.
Well, it's the very definition of headhunting. And headhunting... Per the MLB rulebook, headhunting is supposed to have a very long suspension already. I mean, and here's the other thing. What kind of bothers me about this whole thing, we've had a lot of conversations about the unwritten rules of baseball in the last few weeks. We've had a lot of discussions about that. Me personally, as a new baseball fan, I despise the unwritten rules. I think they're stupid. I think Fernando Tatis Jr. should swing away every time there's a 3-0 pitch and 3 men on the bases and, 14-0 blowout. Yeah, swing away, dude. Have fun. That's what this game is about, 100%. But you know what? This has gone beyond unwritten rules. Now, this is headhunting out of pity, or not out of pity, I should say, but out of anger and out of spite. And that is quite frankly not. It doesn't have anything to do with the unwritten rules. If it had something to do with the unwritten rules, if there was some unwritten rule that had been broken, you could almost make the maybe Aaron Boone's just old school. Well, no, I'm sorry. This is beyond that. This is way outside the realm of unwritten rules. We're entering into the territory of straight up, we're mad at you for kicking our ass. Pardon my language. So we're going to throw at your head with 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I mean, that is beyond the pale. That is so far out of line. I mean, there has to be suspensions for this, or it's going to start happening all over the place. It's going to start happening whenever a team that's supposed to be good is getting blown out by teams that are worse than them. They're just going to start throwing at people because they know they can get away with it, and that is something that is unacceptable. Headhunting in Major League Baseball it has to stop, because you are absolutely right when you say that 101-mile-an-hour fastball can kill a man. Absolutely. You ever seen that video of Randy Johnson throwing that fastball at a bird?
Oh, it exploded, yeah.
Imagine that being Mike Brosso's head. And that's what could have happened here.
Put a dent in his batting helmet.
That is incredibly, even with a batting helmet, that is incredibly dangerous. I mean, and especially Chapman. Chapman is known for being hot-headed. He is known for being, as the Rays Discord would put it, he is the woman respecter on the New York Yankees. He is a man who is known for being hot-headed, who is accused of abusing women, and who is perfectly happy with throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs at people. I mean, quite frankly, if he actually had hit Brasso, that's almost attempted murder.
Yeah, you could take it that far.
When you know that you can throw that fast, I mean, that's it's almost like shooting at somebody, it's just patently ridiculous if the Yankees do not get at bare minimum a suspension on Chapman. There's got to be, at the very least, Chapman's got to be suspended for 5 games because of the Joe Kelly precedent. And I would say that Tanaka has to be suspended for 5, potentially more games for intentional throwing. And Boone should be suspended for at least that long for ordering it. Because
I agree. I agree with that on the Boone thing. He'll probably just get a 1 or 2 game suspension, because usually I haven't personally seen managers get lengthy suspensions. You think with Chapman, I mean, that's hard to say. Obviously he was involved to an extent, but typically that stuff is ordered by a manager. And Aaron Boone has just been that kind of guy that has ordered the Yankees to do this against the Rays. And you have to draw the line somewhere. If you don't start punishing them, it's just going to keep happening. And like you said, especially to your earlier point about the COVID stuff, why they're so harsh on this year, teams throwing at guys, is to prevent the players meeting in a brawl or any situation like that, which did happen after the game tonight. So you think suspensions from there as well, because all of a sudden now your whole COVID protocol, all the social distancing, it's out the window because of the events, and for the umpires refusing to take Chapman potentially out of the game as well, because Brasso, you could tell, was hot about that after the strikeout.
Yeah, and I mean, and frankly, at what point does this stop before someone gets seriously hurt? That's really got to be the thought process here. At what point does this continue? Eventually there is going to be someone who gets hit with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the head, and that person is going to be in concussion protocol at the very least and dead at the worst. So at what point do we sit here and say we're going to just keep letting this happen as a community, as a baseball community? I mean, Chapman is the kind of person who I honestly think would not care, and that I think is a serious problem. The dude has sociopathic tendencies. I mean, when you're sitting here and just uncaring, literally, he didn't even put the glove to his mouth. He didn't even attempt to make a gesture that indicated that he felt bad. That is cold, steely-eyed sociopath right there, who's willing to throw 100 mile an hour at a guy's head and just say, it's fine. It's fine.
Absolutely,
we're okay with this. No, it's really bad. We as a community, and certainly Joe Torre and Rob Manfred have to sit down and think to themselves, at what point are we going to let this keep happening especially by the Yankees, who have all these hard-throwing guys, before someone gets legitimately injured, badly hurt. I mean, look what happened. This isn't related to I don't believe he was hit in the head by a baseball. But look what happened to Bo Bichette last year. Bo Bichette, who is one of the young stars of MLB, one of these big guys that they've got. I don't remember if he was hit by a baseball or if a foul ball ricocheted back into his head, but he was out on concussion protocol for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, and that's life. That's life beyond baseball stuff too, potentially as well.
Yeah, you're starting to get into, very serious mental, problems like brain injuries can arise from getting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball hit in your head. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. The game that these Yankees are playing is a dangerous game because also, I mean, what happens if you do kill somebody doing it? I mean, I would say you go down for murder. Quite frankly, you're going away for a long time. If you throw at somebody's head and they either get seriously brain damaged or get killed because they got hit by a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the head, then yeah, you should be going to prison. It shouldn't just be you're done with baseball. You should be going to jail. And we can't obviously do that to Chapman now because he didn't hit anybody. But if he did, imagine if he did. I mean, at what point does this stop?
And Major League Baseball needs to do all they can in their power to keep it from going that far. A comment just that I wanted to say, Trevor Bauer, a guy that I think has some great opinions about stuff. After the whole Joe Kelly incident, and there was some throwing at the head. It was unknown, I guess, if it was intentional or not. To me, it looked like maybe it was. But Trevor Bauer on his vlog said after that incident, throwing at guys at the head is never acceptable. If you want to throw at a guy, you do it at the belt. That's fine. That's what's traditional. You may not like it, but throwing at guys will always happen in baseball. But you do it at the belt. You have some class about it. And I honestly was hoping in the first inning, it was with 2 outs and the bases empty, Tanaka hits Wendell in the belt. You say, okay, this is just the Yankees' same old crap. We're going to go about our lives. But then I was so disappointed in the events that unfolded in the ninth. I mean, not acceptable on any level. And, of course, we can take this really far, as far as what could have happened from what Chapman did. And, I mean, it is just such a shame. It's such a smear on what could have been not.
And even beyond that, I mean, this is starting to get into sore winner territory. I mean, you guys are winning 5-2 or 5-3. You're winning 5-3 with the bases empty and 2 outs in the top of the ninth inning when you're at home. You're winning this game. Throwing at Brasso now is adding to this. This is something that you're doing now. This is something that you are having conscious thought about to do it because of whatever reason when you've already won the game. The game is over. The game is already essentially over. A rally, there was probably I don't know, you could look at FanGraphs if you want, probably a 0.9% chance that the Rays could rally or something like that. But the game's over. And now you're going to try and start shit right out the gate. You're going to start attacking a guy with 2 outs and the base is empty in the top of the ninth. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is so classless. It is classless. It is just grossly dangerous. And the fact that the umpires did nothing is beyond the pale, too. I mean, frankly, that should have lost the Yankees the game because Chapman should have gotten pulled. Then they got to put in one of their worst relievers. Brasso hit the single. Wendell hit the blast. Or not Wendell. Adames hit the blast. And that's tie game. And now we're going into extras. Or we're going in the bottom of the ninth and then potentially going into extras.
And so that's really what the Yankees deserved.
That's what they deserve. Absolutely. And I mean, I wish that there was, in soccer, I'm not really very well versed in the rules of soccer, but I know there's a red card kind of thing where you can you get a red card and you're thrown out of the game and then whatever. But I don't remember. Is there also penalties in that game where you can have to forcibly forfeit a game if you start attacking players? Isn't that? I mean, because at that point, maybe baseball needs to institute a rule like that, where if you throw at a guy's head, you just automatically forfeit. You lose the game, no matter what the score was. It's just game over. You lose. It's marked down in the books as a loss. I would be interested in a rule like that.
And they may look into that. As far as I know, in soccer, you get the penalty kicks, which is an easier shot on goal than you would get normally, and you can get a goal.
Right.
I think Major League Baseball may look into doing something like that because it's clear as day that the rules that are put in place right now about punishing for guys hitting people is not good enough because they're still doing it. It may have to get to that far extreme where you have to forfeit a game because there's nothing else. I mean, there's not really much that MLB has left in their power to do. Sure. If a 5-game suspension isn't enough, you got to keep taking it up from there.
And a 5-game suspension in this environment, if you do the math, I believe somebody did the math on Joe Kelly's suspension. I think it's like almost triple that. It's like 15 or 20 games in regular season MLB. So I mean, if they're taking 20-game suspensions essentially and being fine with that and going on and doing it more, I mean, if that's not enough of a threat, then I think something else has to happen. There's got to be another thing I've thought about, maybe expulsion from the league. If you get enough suspensions for headhunting, you just get chucked out of the league. I mean, that's another thing that maybe should be considered. No matter what your contract is, no matter how much money you're making, you just get tossed. You're just done because you've threatened people's safety too many times. I mean, I know if that's actually okay. This one I know for a fact there is a rule in football for that.
Yep.
Am I right? There is a rule in football.
With Vontaze Burfict, I believe.
There you go. Yeah. So then why is that not a thing in baseball?
Exactly, and to be honest, it's the same level of kind of a safety violation because Vontaze Burfict has put people's health on the line time and time again, and he didn't care about the suspensions because he kept doing it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically about Chapman's history, but I think the real story should be tied back to Boone because it's clear that he's kind of the ringleader in this operation. You see the kind of snarky comments he always makes after games, especially towards the Rays. They're trying to make this a rivalry, but it's really just because they're frustrated that they can't beat us on the field and they've had to take it a different direction to get kind of their revenge, I guess is what they think.
Yeah, and you're starting to get to the point where, like, Boone, I mean, hey, I hate Alex Cora. I hate A.J. Hinch, those guys who cheated. Those guys should absolutely be gone from baseball forever. But then you start to ask yourself, what's worse, cheating constantly or threatening to hurt people constantly? You have to ask yourself, which one of those two things is worse? Because cheating in a game and potentially ruining somebody's like livelihoods or World Series trophies or MVP trophies, that's one thing, and that's really, really bad. But when you start being a ringleader of hurting people, people need to start asking themselves, what's worse? I mean, honestly, I think Boone is worse. I think Boone is way worse than Cora or Hinch because those guys cheated and they did horrible stuff and they're bad people and they deserve to be thrown out of baseball forever. But he's sitting there basically Machiavellian style plotting out how we're going to hurt Rays players for beating us. That's the kind of stuff that you would see in like the 1930s. That's not, it's 2020. We don't let that stuff happen anymore. Like, I mean, Aaron Boone should, maybe more than a suspension, isn't it? He's another one who maybe we should just sit here and think, this guy's decided that he's going to start throwing at people, he's going to start hurting people. He does it again. Maybe we need to consider tossing him completely out of the league, giving him a ban. If Pete Rose can get a lifetime ban for gambling on games that were his team and betting in favor of his team, then maybe Aaron Boone should maybe get a lifetime ban for constantly attacking other players and threatening their safety. I mean, that's the kind of thing you got to start thinking about. If he's going to keep doing it, forever, he's going to keep taking the suspensions, he's going to keep letting his players take suspensions, and he's going to keep ordering his players to do it. He's essentially like he's running his team like a mob. He's running his team like the New York mob or like Al Capone. That's like when are we going to say no? This is too far. We can't be accepting this anymore. When does it end? That's got to be the question.
Yeah, to your point, it does look like kind of baseball's priorities are a little bit out of whack. I know with the cheating and everything, like you said, people's careers, so many pitchers' careers ruined because of the Astros sign stealing. But baseball ultimately is a kid's game, and cheating at it, while it is easy to get mad about. I mean, when you put it into perspective of Chapman throwing 101 miles an hour at Brasso's head, I mean, I think you're exactly right. Obviously, this is a more significant issue in baseball than cheating, at least I would say. I mean, also, another point that I just thought of while you were talking, I guess a better question towards Yankee fans, what would George Steinbrenner think about all this? I could not think that he would be okay with what went down in Yankee Stadium tonight, if he was still here, of course.
That is a brilliant question. That is a brilliant, brilliant question. I am not well-versed enough in Yankee fandom to know. I know that I've got a buddy who is a Yankee fan, and I'm going to be asking him that question. I'm going to be asking him, are you okay with headhunting? Are you okay with your players attacking my players? Because he's a very genial guy, and I don't think he would be. I think if you ask most Yankees fans, not the most like psychotic ones that you'll find on Twitter or Reddit or any of those places, I think if you ask the most normal of Yankees fans, they will tell you, no, we don't like that. That's not all right. You've got a manager that's threatening people. You got a player that's been a player who has a history of violence. Let's be real. Let's make this clear. Aroldis Chapman has a history of physical violence against people, not outside of baseball diamond, just completely outside of baseball diamond. Aroldis Chapman has a history of physical violence against people. So this is beyond baseball. He is an individual who already has a history of that and who is now throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs to people's heads. I think if you ask most Yankees fans what they feel about a person like that doing that, I would imagine that a lot of the more normal Yankees fans who aren't the like crazy mob at the stadium or the people on Twitter are going to say, I don't really think that's all right. I think that's beyond the pale. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I'll call back into the show in a couple of days when I get the chance to bother my friend about it. I'll call back in and I'll tell you what he said. How about that?
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for the call, Seth. You had a lot of great things to say, and it's on the record, of course, and so appreciated for you coming on and sharing some of that. So thank you again.
Of course. I appreciate the time every week or whenever it is that I call. It's usually like once a week now, I feel like. But I absolutely appreciate your time, and if anybody's listening, I mean, I appreciate the listens. I think your show is wonderful, and I am very, very impressed at the production you put together.
Well, that's much appreciated. The show's always better when you're a part of it, Seth. Thanks again.
Of course. Have a good one.
You too. All right, well, there you go. Seth from Los Angeles. Certainly a very good and, a conversation with substance, we'll say that. Really, any kind of takeaways that I can put on my notepad that happened in tonight's game, you throw it all to the wayside for what happened in the ninth inning. And again, I'll just reiterate this because I think this is really what you pin the game down to. If what happened in the first inning, if you don't recall, it was the bases empty, top of the first, 2 outs, again, base empty, Wendell up to the plate, so obviously that's a prime position to hit someone, and Wendell has already gotten hit by a couple of pitches in this, already in the series in the foot off of a slider that wasn't intentional, but that's, Tanaka hitting Wendell in the belt, that's kind of conventional as far as hitting a guy with a pitch. And if that was, that wouldn't have been the story coming out of tonight's game if that was all that occurred. And you go into the ninth inning, and Chapman faces 3 batters and throws a pitch at all 3 of them, including who ended up being the final out, Mike Brasso, throwing 101 miles an hour directly to the head of Mike Brasso. Obviously not, okay, not acceptable on any level. Obviously, suspensions will be handed down, and to Seth's point, it better be before the game because the Rays, I think they do want to take the high road. They are that kind of franchise, and, you want to stick it to the Yankees no better way than taking the high road. Obviously, suspensions will have to be handed down. I would expect whenever the MLB League office opens tomorrow morning, we will see those suspensions being handed down. Obviously, to Chapman, I'm not sure to Tanaka because I know they kind of have a no tolerance for throwing at guys, but Wendell had a smile on his face. It seemed like all parties involved kind of knew what the score was, if you will. The Yankees, that's just kind of their way. I don't want to use any adjectives that are too negative, but that's just kind of to the lows that franchise has stooped to as of late, and they're mad about, the Rays are beating them fair and square, and the Yankees are frustrated, and that's how they want to take out their frustration. Fine. You hit a guy in the belt, not a big deal. What Chapman does in the ninth inning, not acceptable under any circumstance. Chapman, I would imagine, just because of the precedent that we've seen with Joe Kelly and everything this year, he will probably take the brunt of it. Kevin Kiermaier said, I guess in the Zoom room, he said Yankees third base coach Phil Nevin was an instigator. He said, quote, "We don't like them and they don't like us." That was, I believe, a quote from Kiermaier. So Phil Nevin, a guy, I guess that's kind of his reputation so far as the Yankees third base coach. So it seems like it's obvious that it's coming down from the coaching staff, and obviously the manager, Aaron Boone, the manager usually is the guy that kind of hands that down. And I think, me personally, my opinion, I think Boone should take the brunt of that suspension, but managers typically don't. I guess the way that the Major League Baseball looks at it, it was Chapman throwing 101 and not Boone. And maybe Chapman would have taken it on his own. I don't imagine that Chapman just came in a safe situation with the Yankees team that, let's be honest, is struggling and just wants to throw at guys. Because, your manager puts you in to get a save. He doesn't tell you to throw at anybody. You're just in there to get the save. So I guess to make a long story even longer, I think Boone really needs to take the brunt of this. A little long-winded here, 35 minutes so far into the program. We're going to take a short break. We'll give you, let's start with we got some basketball and hockey scores because that is postseason sports, and then in the next break maybe we'll hit some baseball. The number to call during the break, if we have anybody listening, obviously probably one of the hottest topics that we've ever had on the show, so I know a lot of people are very strong-minded. Myself, we had Seth call and share some good thoughts. A lot of, this is an important issue to a lot of people. So if you want to come on the air, have your thoughts heard, well, we have a line open and would love to hear from you. The number to call is 877-566-1020. You can also tweet us at WHBC Stream if you'd prefer to do that. So with that all being said, at 10:31, we're going to take a short break, give you some scores, and we'll be right back. HBC. Entertaining action in hockey tonight. In overtime, it was the Flyers 4-3 over the Islanders. The Flyers, with their back against the wall, down 3-1, will now force a Game 6. The winner of that series will face the Lightning in the Eastern Conference Finals. And at the end of the first period, it is the Canucks and Golden Knights in a scoreless contest. Vegas leads that series 3-1. We shift over to some basketball scores. In Game 2, it was Boston 102-99 over the Raptors. They now lead that series 2-0 and have won their first 6 playoff games. And in the fourth quarter, in Game 7, low-scoring contest, the Nuggets and Jazz, with just about 8 minutes left to play, are tied at 65. So that'll be a good game coming down the stretch. We're going to take a short break here again. Number to call, 877-566-1020.
Hey, sports fans! William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:33, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Lots of stuff to talk about. Obviously, the Rays losing 5-3 to the Yankees, but that wasn't even the biggest story. Of course, we all know with Chapman throwing at the batters at the end of the game, including 101 right to the head of Brasso. I was not able to listen to the whole thing during the break, but I thought it was pretty good. From the Zoom room, I guess it was after the game, it was Mike Brasso doing an interview. It was a 3.5-minute video. If you're interested in hearing the whole thing, I would direct you to the Fox Sports Sun Twitter. They're going to have probably a lot of those videos, including some quotes from Kevin Cash. But I'm just going to play a little bit of this just to get an idea of where Brasso was at during that last at-bat.
Mike, so that last at-bat, it got a little heated. That pitch was right towards your head. What was your perspective on that and your reaction with that frustration?
It was, my reaction was, I don't know. there's a lot of drawing back and forth this whole time we played this Yankees this year. So, if they want to talk about if anybody wants to talk about the unwritten rules of baseball and sending a message, I believe that was done in the first inning with Joey. Usual protocol when that happens is you get the message and you move on. As far as if there was actual intent behind Chapman's delivery, not really sure. But, pretty frustrating, honestly. It's not what you want to see coming in off the bench, especially when we pretty much let everything go after Joey took the message for us and did it like a man, kind of just took it and carried on with the day. But if there was any intent behind it and they want to send another message, I guess they made their point.
Mike Cash said the scary part was that was a 100-mile-per-hour ball, and he said, quote, "That's a man's life." Was that scary for you? What's going through your head when that happens?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely scary. I mean, you never step in the box with a scared mentality, but 100 at your head is something that'll wake you up for sure, especially coming off the bench, like I said. So, it's really nothing you can prepare for, honestly. But, it is what it is at this point.
Joey Wendell said he's going to have your back every day of the week when that happens. Your team came out of the dugout to defend you. I mean, what did that mean to you, I guess?
Yeah. No, it's huge. It's that's what makes this team special. Everybody pulls for everybody. We always have that next man up mentality, and we know that everybody on this roster has each other's back. So, I mean, it's not surprising. It's just kind of the guys that we have on this team, and kind of tells a lot about the character about this team.
Mike, what do you think kind of the reasoning is behind all of this? It seems every time you guys play the Yankees, it seems like they have something to say. Kind of this issue kind of happens. What do you think the reason behind all of this is?
I think a lot of it has to do with maybe them not liking how we're pitching to I mean, if I were to put something on one spot of why all this is happening, it's probably because they don't like how we're pitching to DJ. There's been a couple inside fastballs thrown against him. That's where Snyder and our pitching staff sees that we're going to attack him. Some of them maybe a little bit inner than they're trying to go, but I believe that is the roots of all of this, I would say. And they made their point that they don't like how we're pitching to them.
Those comments, of course, from Mike Brasso, and that is courtesy of Fox Sports Sun. That was from their Twitter. I would definitely direct you to that Twitter page, as they're going to have some stuff, I would imagine, from Kevin Cash and all those guys. I'll give you the phone number again if you want to call and talk about this. We have a line open and would be willing to talk to you about anything and everything with sports, but especially what's going on in Yankee Stadium tonight. The number to call, 877-566-1020. We'll be with you probably for another 30 minutes or so. With all that's happened, it kind of the rest goes to the wayside as far as inning by inning and box score breakdowns and that kind of stuff. To an extent, this was kind of bigger than baseball. Kevin Cash, from that Zoom room little clip, that's a man's life. We do have a caller. We're going to take it right now. And we have Sebastian calling from Canada. How's it going, Sebastian?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for the call. What can you say?
Well, I don't really want to talk too much about, the whole hit by pitch and the whole Chapman issue.
That's all right.
Seems like Seth already covered that pretty in depth. So, I just wanted to say that I thought, not to take away from what some of the other guys were doing. I thought Richards had a pretty good outing. He doesn't seem to stay out for too long, but besides those 2 home runs that he gave up to LeMahieu there, I thought he was pretty solid. He was painting the corners and he had pretty good command, and he was able to make pretty big pitches when he needed them. So I think I just wanted to give him credit because I feel like he kind of gets overlooked sometimes, and being placed in, with all the injuries that the Rays are having, I feel like he's pretty much stepped up to the plate, and it's a shame he still hasn't gotten the win, but he keeps playing the way he's playing. I think he'll get there.
Absolutely, yeah. Trevor Richards is a guy, I think, all things being considered, a normal season and without all these crazy injuries, Richards would kind of be one of those bolt guys if they need 3 or 4 innings in a spot, but now he's had to be thrust into, he's now kind of become the Rays' 5th starter, all things being considered, and he's done relatively well. I think, you couldn't have asked for much more from him. His job tonight was basically just to eat innings. I honestly don't think tonight was as much about winning the game as it was setting up your bullpen maybe, as far as coming behind Morton, who's the discussions around him. He may only go an inning or two, so you're going to have a lot more innings to cover tomorrow. He got you 4 2/3, so almost through 5, which I think is ideal. I don't think it was a pitch count thing. He only threw 64 pitches. I think it was they didn't want him to go through the order a third time through. That's their big metric as far as kind of those back end starters. They don't want him to face a hitter a third time through, including DJ LeMahieu, who they pulled him right before. So, he did. A couple of pitches got away from him, but the changeup was working. Again, as he said, he was putting pitches where he wanted to. Obviously, that low 90s fastball, it's not easy to get by Yankees lineup with those pitches, but Richard's a guy that's made the most of it, and I would say, all things considered, you like what he gave him tonight.
Yeah, and you compare him and Tanaka and that whole pitching matchup there, and I mean they were both pretty even, if you ask me. I mean, despite, I think Richards gave up a couple more hits here and there, but like we were saying, he managed to make the pitches when he needed them, to get the outs when he needed them. He also managed, I don't remember how many strikeouts he got, but he got a decent amount.
He got 5, yeah. No walks either.
Yes, exactly. So, Tanaka's a pretty elite pitcher. Like, when his stuff is working for him, it can be really frustrating for the batters. So to see Richards up there kind of going toe to toe with him and kind of putting up a similar numbers, I thought that was nice to see. And then Kiermaier was able to tie the game up so he wouldn't get the loss there with that home run. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple plays I think that were a little questionable on our part. That throw by Adames trying to get, I think it was Gio Urshela at the plate with his inside the park home run that he managed to pull off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that Kiermaier play that allowed that whole thing to happen, I guess it's easy to kind of get upset at Kiermaier for that. Those are the plays that, he usually makes, so I think he kind of gets away with it. I'll give him a pass.
Like nine out of 10 times he would have made that catch.
Yeah,
and
so I think
he's the guy to make it, right? So can't blame him for trying.
Yeah, I think he got a bad break and you just have to eat it at that point, because obviously you don't want to tell him to stop doing that, because an average center fielder would just let it drop in front of him for a single, and I think that would have, in that situation, could have potentially scored a run, and that would have given the Yankees the lead. So Kiermaier knew the situation. He knew that an A-plus play from a Platinum Glover could have potentially kept the inning scoreless after Richards made it a little bit of a mess. So I don't blame him, but I think all things being considered, that was probably what gave you the loss, but you could also pin it on the offense. Really could not do anything against the Yankees' A bullpen that thankfully they really haven't had to see too many times this year, with Britton and Chapman, who did the job tonight for the Yanks.
That's right, yeah. And another thing I was kind of wondering is, we haven't seen Meadows in the lineup for the past couple games. I think he was in today and he wasn't in. Was he in the entire game or not? I don't remember if he got taken out.
Yeah, he finished the
end.
game.
Okay, yeah. So I was just wondering, because he wasn't in yesterday or the day before, if there was anything that was going on, or if it was just maybe Cash was just giving him a couple days off or what. I didn't know if you knew anything about that.
Yeah, I think the word was, I don't know if it was a specific body type, but they said he was just feeling a little sore, wasn't quite himself. And Meadows on the pregame show on the radio, he was saying that he felt really refreshed and he felt better about it. So I think in some ways it was just kind of about managing kind of the roster. They have an influx of outfielders, so if there was any time to do it, this would be the time, because with Morton coming back from the IL tomorrow, they're going to activate him. I would imagine it's going to be an outfielder that gets sent back, whether it's a Rosarena or probably O'Grady. If you had to pick one, he would probably be getting sent back. So I think the Rays found a time that they could, have three good outfielders. So they just picked this time to give Meadows a couple days off. But I think there was something that was nagging him a little bit, and thankfully, obviously, didn't cost him an injury list trip.
Yeah, that's good to hear then. Yeah, because I figured there must have been something wrong, just because he's usually not the type to be sitting out for multiple games in a row. Like, he's one of the main starters. So I was just wondering what the issue was there. So I mean, it's good to see him back in today. And I mean, his bat hasn't been too hot lately, but I mean, defensively he's been there. So that's good to see as well.
Yeah, the defense, he made a point of that in the offseason to try and improve his bat right now. I mean, he went 0 for 4 with a strikeout tonight. I don't know if that was because of the days off. He seemed like kind of was slumping a little bit. His average is down to 233. He was really hot right when he came back, and then it seemed like he's cooled off since then. He batted cleanup tonight, which I didn't really get. To me, I would want the lefty Meadows leading off against a righty every time, but they go with Choi tonight, who's been hot. So, I mean, obviously Meadows will stay in the lineup, I guess, at the top. But if he keeps going this way, maybe you put him towards the bottom of the order. I don't know what Cash is going to do.
Yeah, and the other thing was, what do you think? I guess the pitching will look like tomorrow, because like you said, Morton, they probably won't get more than maybe I'd say 2 innings, 3 innings probably max, depending on how he's doing. So I mean, it's going to be another bullpen day, but I can't see them reusing a lot of the guys from today. Just wondering if you had any thoughts.
I believe Reed won't pitch because he pitched multiple innings, and you usually don't pitch on a back-to-back when you have a second up. Thompson, he had an inning and a third, 27 pitches, so he'd be out. So you go to guys in play. The guys that pitched yesterday, they'll be fine because they had the day off. Castillo, as far as, a high-leverage spot, could be good to go. Fairbanks would be good to go. So those are kind of your 8th and 9th, maybe, if you have a lead. Edgar Garcia, I'm not sure because he pitched 30 times, I believe, last night. So I would imagine he'd be out. And then you're down to John Curtis, who's fully rested. We'll see him, I'm sure. You've got Aaron Slegers, who I believe is being predicted maybe to get bulk innings behind Morton. Slegers, the guy, I remember an outing, he had 4 perfect innings against the Blue Jays, so he's a guy that can give you 50 or 60 pitches, so I'd imagine they go Slegers behind Morton. And then at that point, you'd have Sheriff, a guy that can get lefties out, Curtis, Fairbanks maybe, and then Castillo in a high leverage spot. And I would imagine, Cody Reed, Edgar Garcia, and probably Ryan Thompson would be the only 3 that would not be in play, I would imagine.
Right. Actually, now that you mention, I thought Reed looked pretty good today too. What did he do? 2 innings, I believe.
Yeah, it was. 2 innings of no-run ball, gave up just a hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts, 21 pitches, 14 for strikes. So, I mean, he looked good. That fastball that was, advertised as, mid to upper 90s was good. He got swing and misses. His slider looked pretty decent, too. He had some elevated sliders. I believe one that got, I want to say DJ LeMahieu out, but I'm not exactly sure. So, a guy that was not great with the Reds, but the talk that I had found after the trade was he was just kind of mismanaged. And obviously, the Rays, they're great at putting guys in positions where they can succeed. So Reed with a guy that honestly to me has plus stuff. And 2 innings scoreless against a Yankees lineup, a bit depleted, I'll give you that. But I think ultimately he's going to be a good addition, and he's a lefty. So they were talking about on the radio tonight a Jalen Beeks type that can get lefties out in a high leverage spot.
That's right. Yeah, so it's good to see them have him in there, and I mean we only saw him for 2 innings or whatever it was, so I guess it's kind of early to tell, but yeah, it looked good. So just glad to see the bullpen getting a little beefier. And then I guess the only other thing I was going to talk about was Brandon Lau seems to be I mean, he's been slumping as well the past couple games, and like you can't expect the guy to stay hot forever. I just hope he's not starting to get frustrated and desperate at the plate because he had 2 strikeouts. I think it was 2 strikeouts today, if not more.
0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
3 strikeouts, right? And he's not usually the type to strike out too many times in the game. Like usually he'll at least make contact. So I was just thinking, like, you know, hopefully he's not starting to get a little desperate there. I know last year it was that they were having trouble with him having a lot of strikeouts, and then he sort of started working on that and being a little more selective. So just hope he can stick through it and find his bat back again.
Yeah, absolutely. Brendan Lau strikes me as a guy that stays pretty composed, so I'm hoping not, a frustrated kind of guy right now. The one thing maybe that I would suggest, I haven't found it to be this specifically, but early in the season when Lau's bat was not going, it was the talk that the scouting report on him was that he was not good hitting off-speed stuff, and that's all pitchers would give him early in the season. And it seemed like during that stretch where he got really hot and he was the American League Player of the Week, I believe, I mean, he was just slugging everything that pitchers would give to him. So his rookie year where he was so hot, obviously they didn't have the scouting reports. He clobbered fastballs. It looks like pitchers, especially in the American League, know him a bit better this time around. And I would probably chalk it up to that he's maybe just going through another stretch where he can't quite connect with off speed. And that would be to the point of the 3 strikeouts tonight. And you said how he usually makes contact. If he's just whiffing at the off speed right now, that's, I guess, just something that he would have to work through, hoping, he'll get back on the right track at some point before season's end.
That's right. And I guess you bring up a pretty interesting point because, like, it's just such a weird season. I mean, only 60 games, and I think the majority of them are, American League East teams, right? So you're seeing the same guys over and over again. Like, you throw in a couple of the National League games in there as well, but there's not many of those. So, like, it'd be really interesting to see how the postseason plays out, not just for the Rays, but for every other team, because now they're going to start seeing, these teams from these other divisions that they haven't seen them all season, and it's just going to be really interesting to see how, the pitchers adapt to the batters and how the batters adapt to the pitchers. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think it certainly favors the I would say probably the pitchers, as they can kind of form an attack about kind of having to attack these hitters, and we've seen kind of guys get hot and then cool off really quick, like that's happened to Lau in Meadows. So it's just, it's the nature of the season. Everyone's having to deal with it. I mean, I'm hoping it kind of what happened at the last season a little bit. I know they got really hot in September last year, but there was a stretch where they were kind of having some struggles, and then it seemed like October hit, and that wild card game, in Oakland, a guy like Yanni Diaz who had not been hitting, all of a sudden he's really hitting. So I guess the hope is in October they're going to start, everyone will fire on all cylinders when it counts, I guess is the hope.
That's right, yeah. All right, man.
All right, well, thank you so much for the call, Sebastian. It was a really good one. I appreciate
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points, so thanks again.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.
And there he goes, Sebastian calling in. We really appreciate his call as well as Seth's. A lot of good callers tonight. Some really good points again from Sebastian, so thank you if you're still listening for the call. As we continue on this program, probably about another 30 minutes left or so, we'll go ahead and take another break. We'll give you the baseball scores, and then when we come back, if we don't have any more callers, we'll go inning by inning tonight's game. But if we do have more callers, that's perfectly fine and certainly welcome. The number to call, if you would like to do so, is 877-566-1020. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. Definitely follow that one as well, but you can tweet your thoughts on there. So we're going to give you some MLB scores. Take a quick break, and we'll be right back. HBC. A lot of action in the MLB tonight. The season coming down to the final stretch in September, the first day after the trade deadline. It was the Orioles 9-5 over the Mets as the Mets continue to crumble. The Braves 10-3 over the Red Sox. The Phillies 6, Nationals nothing. Obviously the Yankees 5-3 over the Rays. The Marlins edging out the Blue Jays 3-2. In Cincinnati, it was the Cardinals 16-2 over the Reds. Sonny Gray not able to get out of the first inning. He takes the loss. And current action right now in a rain delay in the 8th, it's the Cubs 6-5 over the Pirates. Also in the 8th, the Tigers 10, Brewers 1 in the 8th. The Indians 10-1 over the Royals. In the top of the 9th, it is the Rangers and Astros tied at 4. In the 8th, it's the Twins 3-2 over the White Sox for battle for first place in the American League Central. In the 6th, it's the Giants 9-2 over the Rockies. In the 4th, it is the Dodgers up 2-1 over the Diamondbacks. Number to call during the break, 877-566-1020.
Hey, sports fans! William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBCStream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCStream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:56, we are back on the William Haynes Show again. Final 30 minutes of the program or so. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Well, not necessarily good. I guess that's not the right way to put it. Some unfortunate things that transpired in the Rays-Yankees game tonight, of course, with the Tanaka hitting Wendell in the belt in the first inning, and Chapman throwing at all three of the batters in the ninth inning. Just final now, it was the Nuggets 80-78 over the Jazz in Game 7. So the Nuggets advance a low-scoring Game 7, which usually is the case. I believe the Jazz were up in the series, I think, like two games to 1 or 3 games to 1 or something like that, and the Nuggets mounted a comeback. Nikola Jokic, 30 points and 14 boards led the way for the Nuggets. So I'm not sure who they will play. A Game 7 tomorrow between the Thunder and Rockets at 9 o'clock, which will be good. And it looks like, I'm not sure. One of them is going to play the Lakers, and one of them is going to play the Clippers. So I guess it would just shape out that way. So, the Nuggets will be taking on one of the LA teams coming up, which will be an interesting matchup. Obviously, the Nuggets, not a team that's got a lot of superstars, really just Nikola Jokic. And really, I wasn't watching, but, pretty bad for the Jazz. They've got Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, all of that. Looked like it was Nikola Jokic going up against Gobert in the post for, I guess, the final bucket or in a crucial spot. So, talk about turning the current NBA on its head with all the three-pointers and stuff going on and two big men going at it. In a Game 7. So that was just a side note that I wanted to add as we're, to encompass all sports. And currently, of course, we talked about the Flyers forcing a Game 6, 4-3 over the Islanders. And at the end of midway through the second, it is the Canucks and Golden Knights still scoreless. The Golden Knights lead that series 3-1. I'll give you the number one more time to call, but if no callers, we'll just go ahead and dive in to tonight's game and kind of get that out of the way, and of course preview tomorrow's contest. The phone number to call is 877-566-1020. We had a couple of callers already tonight, and if they're still listening to the program, I just wanted to just thank them one more time. Both Seth and Sebastian, they both had very good things to say. And I appreciate them being part of the program. The program is always better when people like you guys are part of it. So I wanted to thank you guys once more. So the post-mortem, if you will, of tonight's loss. The Uno reverse card, if you will. The Rays 5-3 over the Yankees yesterday. Instead, tonight they lose by a score of 5-3. it was the Yankees improving to 20-14. The Rays dropped to 25-12. We look at the American League East standings. The Yankees are now just 3.5 games back. It snapped a couple of streaks for the Rays, a 6-game win streak, including nine games on the road that the Rays have won consecutively, and it snapped a 6-game winning streak against the New York Yankees. So a lot of winning streaks were snapped, which was kind of unfortunate. And just want to throw this out there: it will be the Nuggets taking on the Clippers in the upcoming series, and the winner of the Rockets OKC game tomorrow will play the Lakers. So some interesting matchups in the Western Conference semis. We'll keep our eyes on that. We'll of course be on the air tomorrow talking all sports. So the Rays, their lead in the AL East is now just 3.5 games. They can force it back out to 4.5 with a win tomorrow. They take the series. They've already won the season series. They're 7 games to 2. So I guess tomorrow would just about being putting some more distance. Not sure how much a division crown means, especially after what transpired tonight. Heavy on the bragging rights just because of how the Yankees reacted. We played the comments from Mike Brasso after the game. I guess the start of it is they didn't like the way that they were throwing inside to LeMahieu, which I don't get that. I've never got it. You should be able to pitch wherever you want. We talk about those unwritten rules. I think it's bizarre, and the Yankees like to just take they like to take offense to everything because they're the Yankees and they think that everyone should just bend the knee to them. And the Rays, who have struggled against the Yankees in years past, have really stood up to the Goliath. And the Yankees, of course, have taken exception to that. But enough of that. We'll leave that to be at least for tonight. Not really much left to discuss. We've covered it pretty intensively. Nothing on Twitter from Mike Tompkin as far as suspensions or anything like that. We'll find out some more stuff tomorrow, and I'll be tweeting some stuff out at WHBC Stream on Twitter. Make sure you follow that account as well. The link to this show goes live whenever we're on the air. We'll be on the air tomorrow, probably at about 10 o'clock or so after the Rays-Yankees game tomorrow. As we officially, talk about tonight's game, we'll give you the lineup first. The way it lined up defensively in the outfield from left to right, it was Margot in left, Kiermaier in center. It was Austin Meadows in right. The reasoning behind that was more ground to cover in left, so they want the better defender Margot out there, who's a center field type, so he did good in left, and have Meadows out in right field. And then the infield from left to right, it was Wendell at third base. It is Yandy Diaz on the 10-day IL with a right hamstring strain. It didn't look like, Yandy was concerned about it, but the Rays always so conservative with keeping those players healthy. You think back to last year where Diaz was on the IL for the last part of the season. I believe he came back for that Blue Jays series to end the season, and then bang, led off the wild card game with the home run, and the rest kind of was history. So obviously they want him for October baseball because of how meaningful he was. Who knows what would have went down in that one-game playoff if not for Yandy Diaz. So obviously, having him healthy in October is more important than having him healthy in September, especially with where the Rays are at with a 3.5 game division lead and everything like that. So that allowed them to make another roster move. They brought up Nate Lowe, a guy who was previously just a first baseman, but slimmed down and can play third base. So he's another lefty option, more offense. It looks like for defensive purposes, who I prefer over there anyway will be Wendell at third base for the time being, but maybe now a platoon, a true lefty-righty platoon as far as Wendell and Nate Lowe. But they're both lefties, so not quite. But I guess, if you want offense, you go Lowe. If you want defense, you go Wendell, and maybe some late-game substitutions in that department as well. Wendell, a guy who can play second and shortstop pretty well. Also, in the infield from left to right again, Wendell at third base. It was Adames at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second. It was G-Man Choi starting the game at first base. He left the last night's game early with stomach issues, but I guess it was all fine. And then catching it was Michael Perez. You would imagine Kevin Smith will probably play tomorrow because Perez has caught a handful of games in a row at this point, and Smith came in as a late-game defensive replacement, I believe, in the 9th inning. So that and the way the lineup was ordered, it was G-Man Choi leading off, Brandon Lau batted second, Wendell third, Austin Meadows cleaned up, followed by Tsutsugo and Adames, and a bottom three of Kiermaier, Margot, and Perez. The lineup did not perform really any particular place. They only had 4 hits tonight, so that's lucky to have 3 runs that they did. Choi gave him nothing at the top 0 for 3. Lau has continued to struggle. We talked about that with Sebastian. Lau went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. His average is now down at 264, so he's officially really cooled off. You look, Austin Meadows also 0 for 4. Meadows had an 0 for. Adames really the bright spot right now. He went 3 for 3, scored 2 runs, knocked in a run. He's now batting .316, so an on-base percentage of nearly 400. So Adames really an anchor. At the middle and towards the bottom of the order. He's been good defensively, had an error tonight, but it didn't make a difference because that play was already kind of busted up by Kiermaier, but allowed Urshela to make it an inside the park homer, so a fielding error charged to Adames on a throw, thankfully not a fielding error, as was such plaguing him earlier in the season. So that was the way the lineup was, and it was Trevor Richards starting. I thought maybe they'd put him behind an opener, but they say he's better starting, and that's fine. It kind of bore that, we'll get to it. We'll start in the top of the first. I wanted to note the Rays were 21-7 in the month of August, which was one of their best months, I think, in recent memory. As this was the first game, they're now 0-1 in September. Of course, it was Choi leading the game off with a strikeout. Lau strikes out, and then that hit by pitch by Wendell where he put it right in the belt, and it seemed like everyone kind of knew what the score was. Wendell was smiling going down to first base as Mike Brasso said, really took it like a man, and everything like Brasso said, they took the message as far as, I guess, pitching inside to LeMahieu, whatever the crazy reasoning is, and then Meadows flew out to end the inning, so nothing came from the hit by pitch. In the bottom of the first, the Yanks remind us that Trevor Richards is not Tyler Glass now. It was DJ LeMahieu and the second pitch of the game, taking it 380 feet to left for a home run to make it 1-0 Yankees. That was my point. I would have preferred to see the opener tonight just because the top 3 hitters, not so much Hicks, but the 1 and 2 with LeMahieu and Voit. They have been Rays slayers really this year, especially Voit. But LeMahieu has come on really strong. He's batting .402 right now, so that tells you everything you need to know. He was one of the best players in the American League a season ago, and he led the game off, of course, in the second pitch with a home run. I believe it was a changeup that didn't quite break, and LeMahieu got a good hold of it to make it 1-0. And then Voit struck out, Hicks flew out, and Frazier struck out. So Richards gathered himself well after that, which is what you want to see. And we know he's the silver hair, but he's not quite an old man. But he has, I guess, maybe the composure of one. He's not a young hothead like an Aroldis Chapman type. We go to the top of the second inning. Adames got a single, doubled off at first. The inning started with the Yoshi ground out. Then Adames, who went 3 for 3 again, as I mentioned. Also, he must have walked, or no, I guess he only got 3 at-bats tonight. I forget that, with the hits, they didn't get many people up to the plate. So he went 3 for 3. He gets on, and then Kiermaier lines. Not really a base running mistake. He just kind of caught a tough break. It looked like it was going to be a base hit, but Kiermaier it went to the wrong spot, and unfortunately, Adames gets doubled off at first, so that ends the inning. It was a double play. We go to the bottom of the second. Richards gives up 2 singles, but then shuts it down. It was Urshela and Tauchman, so that was men at first and second with nobody out. Against Gary Sanchez to ground into a double play. He was really not been good for the Yankees this year. I know Yankees fans know that. 0 for 3 with a strikeout tonight. He's batting .124 on the year, but Urshela moved over to third, so they've got a runner 90 feet away, and the catcher Higashioka strikes out in a 9-pitch at-bat to end things. So it was nice for Richards to come back again, showing some composure. The game got away from him at times, but he kept it, within his control. One thing that was big, I'll give credit to Dave Wills on the radio broadcast. He was a college pitcher. He was a pitching coach for, I believe, his alma mater. He knows pitching. Again, Dave Wills from 620 WDAE doing the radio calls. He was saying the problem with Richards mainly, for Trevor Richards, his struggles, too many walks and just, the pitch count. He didn't throw enough strikes in his other outings. He kind of, bit around the strike zone. Tonight, though, 64 pitches, 46 were for strikes, no walks. And then we look as far as the first pitch strikes for batters faced. He faced 18 men and threw a first pitch strike to 12 of them. So obviously, it's not easy with a guy that doesn't have A++ stuff to challenge the Yankee hitters like he did tonight. He got burned a couple of times, but ultimately as Sebastian pointed out. I think not enough people kind of appreciate what Trevor Richards has done for this team. He's emerged as an emergency fifth starter, and as Dave Wills said on the broadcast as well, the fifth starter isn't going to win you a game. All you want is for him to keep you in it, and he did just that, as I believe he left with the game tied. Hopefully we'll get his first win soon, as he certainly deserves it. We now head to the top of the third. Tanaka is cruising. Got Margot to strike out in 3 pitches. Looked pretty bad in that at-bat. We go to Margot's stats right now. He went 0 for 3 with a strikeout tonight. His average is down to 284, but not the 081 kind of Margot that we're talking about. He's become a good player this year, but just had a rough night. But I think that's where they want to keep him in the bottom of the order if he's still going to be on the roster when they make some moves. I imagine he would be. He batted 8th tonight, which I think is a good spot for him, but he struck out pretty easily. Perez worked a walk. He took the pitches down, which is what you want to do against Tanaka. The Rays didn't do a fantastic job of that. They also swung at a lot of sliders that were well inside. That was kind of their weakness tonight. Choi reached on a fielder's choice, ran out a double play ball, and then Brandon Lau, who's been ice cold, struck out to end the inning. Bottom of the third, DJ LeMahieu strikes again. It was Wade flying out for the first out. DJ LeMahieu, a solo home run. Once again, 352 feet to right. That is the only place, the only stadium in Major League Baseball where that would have been a home run. The first row in right field in that short porch. As Dave Wills says, I know I'm quoting him a lot. Yankee Stadium in Williamsport, which is where they play the Little League World Series, and it's about 2/3 the size of a Major League Park, is where that ball would have been a home run. Which is, the Yankees. That's the Yankees are the Yankees. They've got the short porch, the home run sluggers, the whole deal. They throw at people and get away with it. All of that we know. So a tough break there. Obviously, it's chalked up as a home run to Richards, but in every other park, that's a routine flyout. Also, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this. The metric that they had, and they mentioned on the radio broadcast, is they said that would have been about a 30% hit probability. So not even a home run probability, just because, that was a routine fly ball that's usually caught for an out, and it just ended up getting out of the yard to make it 2-0 Yanks. Luke Voigt hits a single, but then he gets Hicks and Frazier out, who he pretty much dominated tonight, which was good to see because those are some pretty good hitters in their own right. Frazier struck out 3 times tonight, so he's not doing too well as of late. Top of the fourth we go. Rays don't get a base runner for the first time in the game. Wendell strikes out. Meadows put a charge on a deep fly out to center, went about 390 so feet, but it's caught. And Yoshi lines out to end the inning. So they go down 1-2-3 in about the middle of the order, which you don't like to see. In the bottom of the fourth, Richards works a quiet inning. Thankfully, Urshela flies out, Tauchman flies out, and Sanchez flies out. And they were all to Margot. So he got all fly out to left field, which was kind of entertaining. Top of the fifth now, Kevin Kiermaier makes it 3 straight games with a home run to the same exact spot as last night. Adames with a ground rule double, his 13th of the year, which leads the team, and I believe one of the top in the majors as far as doubles is concerned. It was a 3-2 count, got a meatball, and he lined it to left and hopped the wall over there. And then it was Kevin Kiermaier, 400 feet to right, hitting the first row in the second deck, just as he did last night, and once again to tie the game. So how do you like that on an 0-2 pitch? It was an interesting at-bat. He swung on an 0-1 slider that was nowhere near being in the zone, and Kevin Kiermaier was kind of cursing to himself and kind of banging the bat on the ground. I'm like, okay, what is Kevin Kiermaier doing? And then Tanaka went back to the well but couldn't quite get the spot. He left it kind of floating over, and Kevin Kiermaier, obviously the lefty bat, pulls it. Again, it was kind of that slider in, but didn't quite break as well. So that was just kind of a cool moment. Kind of those subtleties that you pick up watching a ball game, kind of a cool moment for Kiermaier, and it tied the game, which was really cool because with Richards, you didn't feel great about where he was at the time, and KK put you right back in the game. That made it 2-2. We go also in that inning, and then Margot flew out, Perez grounded out, and Choi flew out. Tanaka was through 75 pitches at the end of 5, and they finally got to him, although didn't get much against him in 6 total innings. The bottom of the fifth, Richards exit. Thompson retires LeMahieu. Richards started the fifth inning, got Higashioka to strike out, Wade to ground out, and at that time he had completed his second tour through the order. And we know, as again I mentioned to a caller, the Rays, their metric, they don't like how their starters do a third time through the rotation, more so the bottom type guys. And especially you don't want him to face LeMahieu, the leadoff guy, as that was the next batter to come up who had homered in both at-bats, which makes sense. So they go to the bullpen, and, you lost tonight, so you didn't have to cover the bottom of the ninth. So they only had to cover essentially 3 innings, so which sets you up well for tomorrow. As I mentioned to Sebastian, they've got just about everyone in play. We'll preview that game, by the way, at the end of the show. So Thompson comes in with 2 outs and the bases clear to face LeMahieu and gets him to ground out. So all is gravy there in a tie game after 5. Top of the 6th, Tanaka gets through the 6th inning. Lau strikes out. Wendell flies out on a Frazier diving catch where he didn't have to dive. That's kind of what I've heard Yankees fans, that's just a Frazier move, just, I guess, wanting to make himself look better with the diving catch. And he had to pull the glove back because he almost dove too far. It was a funny play. And then Meadows struck out. So 1-2-3 inning for Tanaka. I'll just give you the line for him now. 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, that 2-run shot for Kiermaier on just 3 hits. Only a walk, the only walk given by either team. So that was kind of weird to see. Struck out 7, 88 pitches thrown for him, gets the win tonight. He is now 1-1 on the year. And ultimately, a guy that they'd gotten to pretty well last time around. They struggle against him. Hopefully we won't have to face the Yankees again after tomorrow. I'm hoping we don't see them in October, but who knows how that is going to break. And then we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. How low can you go? Voit singles, Frazier singles. All of a sudden, another situation with 2 men on and nobody out. And Urshela, an inside the park home run. It was a triple, and then he got home on an error. But basically, you call it an inside the park homer. A Kevin Kiermaier misfire, I guess you could say, miscue in center. It was kind of one of those where it was a single, and Kevin Kiermaier doing what he does was going to make a diving catch on it with especially runners on base and no outs and it was in a tie game. So you understand the nature of why Kevin Kiermaier does that. As Sebastian said, and I agree, he gets that play 9 times out of 10. So, you let him go for it there. Obviously, he makes the decision in the moment, but just barely misses it off the glove. Just couldn't quite get there. And the ball, of course, trickles all the way back to the wall, picked up by either Meadows or Margot, who relays it to Adames, and then Adames with a misfire that goes all the way back to the backstop that allows Urshela, who would have just been held to a triple, get all the way home. And so that made it, at that point, 5-2. So it would have been 4-2. The offense didn't do much, so I'm not sure the Adames error mattered. It was more so the miscue in center for Kiermaier. And that was going to be the story, I guess, of the game. Maybe you go with the way the pitchers performed. Ryan Thompson especially, who took the loss, and kind of deservedly so. He was not. Yankees were getting contact off him rather easily. But, of course, everything that unfolded during the ninth kind of changed where the narrative of this game went. And, of course, we'll keep our eyes on everything like that. I haven't gotten any updates on it. So going to the top of the 7th, it was a 5-2 game. And then, of course, after that, Tauchman and Sanchez were out. So Thompson gets to finish the inning, which was good. His line finishes at an inning and a third, 3 earned runs on 3 hits, no walks, a strikeout. Again, gets the loss. He had his hand in his head in his hands, kind of shaking his head, mad at himself. Got a tough break with the Kiermaier thing, but again, did not look good tonight. A guy that has been a crucial part of this team. Again, didn't come on with any men on base tonight, but so far one of the best in the majors in that department. Has come on with 8 inherited base runners, and he's not allowed any of them across to score. So that tells you how good he is, especially in a high leverage spot, because there's nothing says high leverage, coming in with inherited men on the base path, and he's been good in that department. He catches the loss tonight, did not look good, so hopefully he can come back better the next time around. We go to the top of the 7th. Willie gets his run back, of course, on that error that allowed Urshela to score. Tanaka comes out, Loaiza in. Yoshi on a 3-2 count strikes out. And the meaning behind that is right up next, Adames, 422 feet to left. Got an easy pitch to hit, and boy, is Adames red hot right now. A couple extra base hits, 3 for 3. Got that run back from the fielding error. And if Yoshi had gotten on in a 3-2 count where there was probably 5 balls in that count that was either fouled off or not called by the home plate ump. Unfortunate kind of the way that broke, including one that was just in a baseball off the plate. So that would have made it, I guess, let's see, that would have made it 5-4 instead of 5-3, and who the heck knows how the game breaks. If that was a 2-run shot, everything would have unfolded differently for sure. But it doesn't go that way. It was just a solo home run. Kevin Kiermaier strikes out. Margot grounds out to end things. So into the bottom of the 7th. It was a 2-run game. Nice Cody Reed debut. Thompson comes out. Cody Reed in to face the 8-9-1 hitter. So nice to get him in a groove. The Rays have been pretty good at letting them face the bottom of the order. Higashioka grounds out on the first pitch. Wade strikes out on an elevated slider, which was interesting to see. A pretty good slider, and he's got a good splitter, too, and a mid to upper 90s fastball. So we're looking at a pretty decent reliever that has been mentioned maybe as a guy that kind of faces the bottom of, a guy that in a high leverage spot, like a Jalen Beeks type, that's a lefty. And he gets DJ to ground it on the sinker, so that was good to see. Top of the 8th we go. A disappointing inning for sure. Loaisiga out. Britton comes in, a guy that the Rays have gotten to rather easily so far, handing in both of his losses, I believe, that he has this year, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a couple of pinch hits. It was Randy Arozarena pinch hitting for Michael Perez. Michael Perez, who had a couple of clutch hits against Britton, but whatever. They keep Arozarena in and grounds out in a deep at-bat. So that was nice to see, but ultimately cannot get on. And then Renfroe pinch hits for G-Man Choi. And he's out as well. Obviously, you want to get those righty-lefty matchups, so that ultimately makes sense, but neither of them pay out for a team that I believe probably still leading the American League as far as, successful pinch hits. I know they lead it in pinch hit appearances. The Rays have been aggressive in that department. Deep at bat on the strikeout for Renfroe as well. And then Lau flies out, to end things. Bottom of the 8th, the second scoreless for Reed, which was nice to see. Kevin Smith comes in to catch. O'Grady to first base, who had a bit of a miscue. Voit grounds out, and then Hicks. It was ruled a base hit, and it should have been, but it was a play, kind of into that gap between first and second, where, the first baseman is when they're not having to hold anyone on. It was a backhanded play. Would have been probably single either way, but it, kind of fumbled with it. I know he's played first base in the minors, and that, I believe, was his originally listed position. He played outfield in that game against the Marlins, so I'm not sure. I would imagine when Morton comes back, O'Grady would be the guy to get sent down. That's just my personal opinion, I guess, but we'll have to see. We'll find out probably tomorrow, because Morton will have to be activated again off the injury list in his start, where we only imagine him to probably go an inning or two. Again, at the end of the second period, it's the Golden Knights and Canucks tied at 1, by the way. Vegas leads that series 3-1, so Canucks trying to avoid elimination. We go to the top of the 9th inning. The Yankees win. Chapman headhunting. So Chapman comes in a save situation and gets it. Wendell grounds out. A throw at him. You'll get the theme here in a second. In the Meadows at bat, he flew out. Oh, what do you know? Chapman threw at him as well. And then Mike Brasso, what do you know? During, I believe, the first pitch of that at bat, which add that to the whole thing, 101 miles an hour directly to the head of Mike Brasso. He ducks under it. The rest kind of was history, if you will, from that point. Right after that, so it was during the at-bat, and again, this was the Rays down to their final out, so kind of some madness. The umpires end up issuing warnings to both sides, and Seth kind of asked about that. I think a little bit was just kind of the heat of the moment, like, why do you issue that? The logic, at least in my mind, as far as that, you do it not because the Rays did anything, but because any right-minded individual would retaliate to what the Yankees did. So you just issue the Rays that warning just to prevent any retaliation. So that's just the kind of the unfortunate nature, I guess you could say. But, anything to kind of prevent as much of that from possible. We know Major League Baseball, who's... at this point, I'm not sure you say they're strict on hitting guys because they don't do much about it. But... in this season, they want to avoid it as much as possible because it sparks the brawls, and we know with the brawls, that's not with the 6 feet of distancing, and usually not with the masks, and that's how the COVID is transmitted. So they want to avoid that because they'd like to play and continue the season. So they don't want that for the purpose of the brawls. The benches did and the bullpens did clear after the game. Also, Kevin Cash comes onto the field. The microphones on the telecast and a little bit on the radio picked it up. Kevin Cash immediately comes out pretty calmly, relative considering the situation, and he immediately comes out. He says, I don't care if you throw me out for this. I mean, final out, it doesn't really matter. I don't know if he gets fined or however that works. But he said, I don't care if you throw me out. He's like, look, what happened with Wendell at the beginning of the game, fine. Chapman threw at all three guys, and you could kind of hear him say, what Chapman just did to Brasso, not cool, throwing at his head, something along those lines. I'm sure John Boy will have some extensive coverage of that. That'll be kind of interesting to keep our eyes on. So that kind of all unfolded. My personal opinion, not that really you asked, but you're listening to the program, so I imagine you would. I think Chapman should have been tossed. I don't know how you can throw 101 at somebody's head and be able to stay in the game. I think that's just a violation of safety. As Kevin Cash mentioned after the game, that's a man's life potentially we're talking about. I mean, I guess it's hard to imagine it, but you throw a solid baseball, you know what a baseball is like, and you throw it 101 miles an hour at someone's head. Granted, they're wearing the helmets, but you don't know what happens. Any kind of thing. We've seen Vontaze Burfict, the stuff that he's got, hits to the head, and it's Antonio Brown, guys like that, and they've had issues with concussions and things like that, and that's just not a man's baseball career. That's life after baseball, with kind of the stuff that, concussions and the whole brain stuff. I'm not going to get into a whole neurology lecture with you here tonight as we put a wrap on the program. But you get the idea. It's not cool to throw 101 at a guy's head. The fact that this was all in the final at bat just added to the bizarre nature of all of that. And then, of course, Brasso struck out to end the game. And, of course, Chapman stayed on and recorded his first save of the year. So it was weird. Obviously, that's the narrative of the game. We're going to keep our eyes on what happens. We'll obviously know tomorrow suspensions. I would not imagine that Aaron Boone will be managing in the dugout. I do not imagine that third base coach Phil Nevin will probably be coaching, just because he's been kind of noted as an instigator in all this, and I think the coaching staff is where you draw the line back to as far as, guys throwing at people. I'm not sure if Tanaka will be suspended. I know Seth was kind of calling for that, and he very well may be. Tanaka, I mean, he doesn't throw. He was probably low 90s, I'm not sure. Throws at a guy's belt. That's just kind of old-fashioned. I don't agree. Me personally, I don't agree with it, that's just hitting people to, because you don't like that they're throwing inside to LeMahieu. But if you're going to throw at someone, just do it in the belt. No injuries. It sends the message, the belt down, I guess is what they say, but in that belt area, fine. It gets the message across. Didn't crush his ribs or anything like that. It's fine. But with Chapman, what Chapman did, not acceptable. That has to be Chapman. I would imagine will catch the most games, and probably Boone trailing, and maybe if you want to throw Nevins or Tanaka as guys that maybe get a couple of games. So it won't matter for Tanaka because he doesn't start, but every 5 days, or every 5th day, I should say anyway. But I guess he just won't be able to sit in the dugout or whatever. I don't know if they're going to go that direction. So again, the Rays lose 5-3. The series is now tied 1 game apiece. The Rays have the season series locked up. They still lead at 7-2 with the season series finale tomorrow at 7:05. Once again, the Rays with a 3.5 game lead. So if they win, they push it out to 4.5. If they lose, it'll be down to 2.5. Something to note: the two teams that are neck and neck, only 2 games apart, fighting for second place, the Yankees and Blue Jays. The final 20 games or so of the season, the Yankees and Blue Jays will meet 10 times. They have yet to face each other. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as far as who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. And maybe not having Chapman with a potential suspension, that would be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. As far as, the Yankees might have shot themselves in the foot a little bit. As we move over, previewing tomorrow's contest, as we put a wrap again on the program. Charlie Morton in his first start back since, let's see, I know it was that Sunday contest against the Yankees. It was Sunday, August the 8th, where he went 2 innings. Of course, he came out with the shoulder issue, discomfort, and then we thought he would just miss maybe a time through the rotation, and here we are about 3 weeks later, and he's coming back. Morton, I think the quote was, he said it took longer than he had anticipated. I think because of the nature of just where the issue was. I don't know exactly the body part. I'm not, a doctor that understands necessarily all that stuff, but just it was kind of caught a tough break with the injury. He's back now, but it looks like I had anticipated he goes maybe 2 or 3. The intel that I had listened to during the game said we're talking maybe 1 or 2 innings, so a true opener. I mean, that would make it tough, I guess, if they're going to retaliate, it would be tough to do it with Morton because he's just coming back, and that's just not how you do things. It would probably be Edgar Garcia or someone, the sacrificial lamb, I guess, if you will, because there will be, I guarantee you, there will be warnings issued to both teams prior to the start of the game, so the first violation will result in someone being kicked out of the game. So obviously you don't want Morton kind of first game back to end that way. So that's just kind of the way that goes. The right-hander is 1-1 on the year with a 5.40 ERA. Again, probably just an inning or two. Everything I'm looking, he's probably going to throw 25, 30 pitches, so you just want to see him look comfortable. The fastball is probably, let's be honest, this is probably his last season. Maybe he plays next year. The fastball is not going to be what it once was. It's not going to be 95 anymore. Maybe in the playoffs he can grunt out 95 or 96, but we're talking low 90s fastball with a really good curveball, and I think he mixes in a couple of pitches occasionally. So I just want to see that he's got a location on the fastball and that the curveball can get some swings and misses, because if not, we're kind of looking at the Charlie Morton that we saw in the early start of the season. He only got a handful of starts. He only started 4 games. Went 4 innings, 5 innings, 5 2/3, and then, of course, in that last game went 2. So not the same Morton, but, again, first game back, you just like to see, he start checking off some of those boxes. And the Rays will be facing the left-hander Jordan Montgomery, who has not been as good as maybe anticipated going into the year. He is 2-1 with a 4.44 ERA. We look to his last start against the Mets in a 7-inning contest. It went 5 innings pitched, gave up 2 earned runs on 5 hits. Has yet to face the Rays. Has not gone more than 6 innings. That came against the Braves on the 11th of August. He threw not so many pitches. I don't know if he had to not get built back up, but he threw only 68 pitches his last time out and only 49 the time before that. But he's thrown a 95-pitch outing, so you think he's fully stretched out, but, only threw less than 70 his last start. So make of that what you will, again, with the 4.44 ERA. The Rays have not been as good against left-handers as they've had against right-handers. So a heavy right-handed lineup, I would imagine, probably a Rosarena in the lineup if he's not sent down. Will probably, I would imagine, lead off, probably play the outfield. If I had to imagine it, you would probably go with a day off tomorrow. You don't need to give KK a day off, so he'll probably be in center. I would go, let's say, a Rosarena in left if they want to go extreme righties. Kevin Kiermaier in center, Hunter Renfroe in right. The infield from left to right, I would go. You would go probably either Wendell or Lowe. Nate Lowe. Take your pick. Wendell or Lowe at third. They're both lefties. Maybe you put Brasso over there as well. At shortstop, Adames, Brandon Lowe at second. At first, I would put Brasso at first base. And catching, it'll probably be Kevin Smith catching for Morton. And then one more thing before we get to what they'll do with the bullpen that I wanted to say. They mentioned on the radio broadcast, the Rays kind of caught a tough break. They trade Jose Martinez to the Cubs for a couple of players to be named later. That was one of your better righty bats. And then Yandy Diaz, your other good righty bat, goes down at least for 10 days or so. So now all of a sudden you're short on righty bats. And that, I think, the point of that is we're going to start seeing a lot more Brasso, and that will probably be a good thing. You heard his comments tonight. I'm sure he would love to get in the lineup tomorrow and hit a couple of home runs. I know I saw some guys in the Discord saying, calling for a 5 home run game for Brasso in a revenge spot, which I would not be mad about. And I also thought kind of a vulnerable moment, too, where you admitted that it's never comfortable when you have 101 going toward your head. But then, the tough guy of, you never go in the box being afraid. But not a great spot for him as far as being thrown at like that. You feel for the guy, and certainly not what you want to see. So hopefully, the Rays will go heavy righty, and hopefully they get to Montgomery early. Everyone for the Yanks will probably be in play in the bullpen. Well, no, if Chapman is out, but Britton, Ottavino, Chad Green, as far as I know, they're all healthy. So they still have that A bullpen that we're all too familiar with. And then for the Rays, I think just about everyone is in play. No Cody Reed as he goes 2 innings. That he won't pitch on a back-to-back. I would imagine no Thompson either, although maybe if they need him to face a batter at the end of an inning or something, he can do that. As far as high leverage guys, I would have Pete Fairbanks and Diego Castillo as those two guys that have performed well. I would imagine it'll be Sleggers for 3 or 4 behind maybe 1 or 2 of Borton. So you're talking probably the 5th inning gets you through with a combination of Borton and Sleggers. And then from there, middle inning guys, you got Sheriff, a lefty. You've got also the lefty Loop, who did not come in tonight. He would be good to go. And then that's all for the left side. So you've got a couple of lefties. Again, Sheriff and Loop. And then from the right-handed side, you've got Curtis in a middle spot. And then at the end of the game, Fairbanks and Castillo, if they want to go things that way. And again, it'll be Morton against Montgomery, and hopefully the Rays come out on the winning end. You would imagine kind of all kinds of stuff, I got the wrong sound. A lot of suspension and stuff to come down, and we'll talk about all that. We'll be on the air after the game tomorrow. It starts at 7, so we'll be on the air at about 10 o'clock or so. Follow at WHBC Stream on Twitter for the link when we'll go live. I want to thank everyone who tuned into the program tonight, and including those who called in, Sebastian and Seth. Thanks to those guys. I want to give you an update real quick. Drake threw a bullpen today. Anderson is going to throw a sim game, and Yarbrough played catch. So those are some guys that should be coming back shortly, but we'll see them maybe in a week or so. Again, Morton v. Montgomery tomorrow. We'll talk about it again. And as always, we will see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.